This video is about language integrated queries or LINQ in C Sharp. So let us go through 10 examples in LINQ, and by the end of this you will have a better understanding of how this works. See, if I have a string array, let's call it, this is an array of words, so let's call it my words, and depending upon your mood you could say it's a beautiful world or the thrill is gone. I don't know. It's a beautiful world. All right. Now we will write a query which will be somewhat like SQL or SQL. Say var, let us store the result of the query in a variable which could be called as x or y or my result. Let me call it my result. And let's, yeah, before we actually write this query, we have to import. One second. I think it will recognize the query and then we can import LINQ. Say from W in my words. Now we put in the condition where w dot length, say I want to pick up words which are less than 5 characters. There should be its and a. Select those words and put it in my result. You see, as I import system.link, it is accepted by the IDE. And once I have this result stored in a variable, I can use the for each loop, say for each where x in my result. Let us print this to the console. So I'm going to run this and let's see what happens. So what we want to take away is that the query that we've written here is somewhat like SQL. This takes a long time. Oh man, come on. So we get these two words out of these four in the array. Our second example is similar, but instead of using a string array, let us try this out with an array of doubles. So I write double. For now, let us just focus on one row of data, and the LINQ queries that we are exploring actually work on multi-dimensional arrays as well. So for now, let this array be something like 45,000.45, then 75,000.75, any numbers for that matter, and all right. So I have these four numbers in the array doubles. Again, I can write a query and save the result in a variable known as You could name it anything. I call it my result consistently. And then again we write an SQL-like query from X in this array, one row, give a condition where say X is more than 40,000, and you could use multiple conditions. X is less than say 81,000. What do? You select that X and put it in my result. And then as usual, we use the for each loop and print it to the console. This makes our second example. In our next example, we will see a list of numbers instead of an array. So you see, for this one, out of 4, we had these two filtered out. In our third example, so in this third example, let us define a list of integers, and let this be called my numbers. Say new list, and then the numbers in the list 1 to 10. Yeah. So I've imported system.collections.generate, and now the list is recognized. Again, in the same fashion as we did earlier, we'll write down a query and store the result in my result. Say from X in my result, my numbers. So the input list is queried. What is the condition? The condition is where say X is more than 3, and again we use multiple conditions. X is less than 8. Select that X and store it in my result, and using a for each loop again, we are going to print this to the console. And with that, we finish our third example. As you see, out of the entire list, only the numbers satisfying this condition were shown. So by now you must have understood that LINQ queries can be used to filter out certain portions of the data. Let's have another example on lists, and let's make a list of integers. Again, call it my numbers. Define this. And let me start from 0 and go till 12. Let us filter out only even numbers from this list. So you can write the query as where my even numbers equal to from x in the list name, which is my numbers, where next modulo 2 is found to be 0. That's even numbers. Select those numbers, and again you could write for each loop. It will traverse the results of the query and print it to the console. These exercises are very simple, but I think they are good for beginning with LINQ queries. I think I use X. So as you see, only even numbers are filtered out. So LINQ queries are used to filter out certain portions of the data. Our fifth example is on a list of strings. Sorry. So let's do a string array instead of list. So a string array which will contain name of cities. And you could put in any names you like. So I've written down a couple of city names, and now we can run a query, say saving the result into my result. This could be called as X. It is your choice. I like to keep it very evident, and say from X in this array, which is called cities. What do we want to do? Say let's find out which city starts with an A and ends with an N. So where X dot starts with, write A, and you could write multiple conditions now using the where keyword, where X dot ends with, say, M. What do we want to do? We want to select that city and save it in my result. Then again run a for each loop for each variable X in my result and print it to the console. Let's run this now. Example is a bit more involved, and I will keep some numbers in a list. We will sort that list, reverse that list, and then we'll filter out first n numbers, the biggest n numbers from that reversed list. So the user will have to input, say I want first 3 biggest numbers from the list, or I want first 5 biggest numbers from the list. So how do we do this? Let's start with making a list of integers, call it my list, and so let us put some even numbers into this: 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and 14. To find the first, say, 3 biggest numbers from this list, let us, on this list, which is called my list, run the sort function. So this would be like 14, 12, 10, 8. And now we'll take, sorry, this is already sorted. Yeah. So you could actually unsort this. Let the input list be like this. Alright. So we purposefully we wrote some numbers which were from 2 to 14, and we jumbled it up a little bit. Running a sort would arrange it properly from 2 to 14, and then running a reverse would give you, say, 14, 12, 10, all the way back to 2. If you want to see, you could run, you could print to the console and check now. At this moment, we want to take input from the user about how many first biggest numbers do we want from the list. So let us write how many records do you want to see. All right. And then the user will write something that will be read into console.readLine, but that will be a string, and we want a number, so we have to save the result of the user's input into an integer n. This will be converted to integer, but it's actually a string. So console.readLine will make the user write a string onto the console. So you take that string input, convert it into an integer, and save it in n. And then we are ready to write our LINQ query. So as usual, I say where my result is equal to, what do I want to do? Filter out something, right? So filter out from my list, I use this function, take the first n biggest numbers, first n biggest numbers. So this will be taking first 3 biggest numbers, and now I will need a for each loop, as all in the previous examples, for each where x in my result. Please print this to the console. Let's run this and see. So I have a jumbled up list. I sort that, I reverse it so that it is in the order of 14 going to 2 descends. I take the user's input, save it in n. So here you see how many records do you want to see? Just 3. And there you go, 14, 12, and 10. So I think this was a good example. Thank you. Let's go to the next example. Our seventh example will use lambda expressions, very simple example, to filter out a list. Let's again take a simple list. Say, list of integers. So list of integers. Again, I call it my list. Let's sorry. Let us start from 1 and we go to 9. All right. Good enough. Our link query remains very similar. So I will be saving the result into my result. But this will be a short one-line lambda expression. So my list dot. Now W is capital, where X such that, say I want to filter out numbers which are more than equal to 5. So more than equal to 5. And I can use multiple conditions in lambda expression as well. So and X is less than 8. Let's also convert this to another list. So the result will be saved in my result, which will be a list, and I want to calculate the sum of this filtered list. So take the filtered list and run the sum and save it in my result too. So take this list, run this condition, save it into another list, call that my result, and find the sum of that filtered list. Let's write this to the console. By now you would have acquired an idea of how powerful this is. Say conditional total is, and what were the numbers that were added to get this total. So you can write the numbers added were and then as usual we run our for each loop. So the numbers were actually residing in my result. So let's print all the numbers in my result. That should do it. Let's run this. So it took out 5, 6 and 7 based on this condition, more than equal to 5, less than 8, and added them to give you the conditional total. And we are done with example 7. In our next example, we do something similar. So we have a list of numbers and we find out only the odd numbers, but we also add all the odd numbers into another list. So from a list we filter out another list. Let us see how we do that. I try to keep these names same in each example. So it's again called my list of integers, and what are the numbers here? So from 0 to 10, let's define another list for saving. So the filtered list will be saved into this. Say, let's call this odd list. Now we query the original list and save the result in my results. So where my result, so now we write our LINQ query from X in, what was that called, my list. So go to my list, each element, check for the element being odd. So X modulo 2 should be equal to 1. That's the condition for being odd. And select that X and save it in my result. Then we run a for each loop. For each integer X in my result, what do? Take the odd list and add this number X. So add the number X. Now after the program is run, the elements which are odd will be added to odd list, and as usual we will then traverse the odd list and print each element to the console. Let's run this. So here we are, 1, 3, 5, 7 and 9 all are odd. Example 9 is an important example again on lists. So we'll run for we'll try to filter out the even numbers and find the square of all the even numbers and cube of all the even numbers and print them in a nice fashion. Let us start this time. So again, list of integers called my list is defined. Let's say we add 11, 22, 33, 44, 55, 66, 77, 88, 99 and 111 to this list. Then we run our LINQ query, where my result from X in this list called my list. Let's write down the condition where X modulo 2 is equal to 0. So here are the even numbers. So here's the beauty. Let square num sq num, you could call it x, y, z, whatever, is equal to x times x, or square of the even number, and also we define cube of the even number. So cube of the even number. So we have the condition, we have defined two new variables. Yeah, this is an SQL like query. LINQ queries don't need that semicolon. What will we do? We will select. So this is a very typical example. Let us memorize how we write this. Write x and square num, and then we write cube num, and that's the end of the query. So you define two new variables, square num and cube num, and then not only you select x but also square num and cube num, and you end it with a semicolon. As usual, let us now run our for each loop. Where y in my result. So traverse the result and print each set. So console.writeLine so each y will contain this set of x, square num and cube num. You could actually capitalize S and also capitalize C. For now it's okay. Let us go and run this.